17 after the hour, 569-1080, 95.1 KOAN and 1080KOAN.com. That is where we stream live. Make sure to go and check us out. You know, if you're headed up to the slope, now is a good time for you to figure out how to do that so that you can listen to the program when you get up there. I mean, you gotta prep. Got to be a preparer. Let me tell you about the hour sponsor for this hour of the program. It is Dr. Dan Kiley. If you are looking for somebody to take care of your teeth so they can take care of you for a lifetime, he and his staff will, they really make sure that their dental offices are very caring, very kind, best in class services with a caring touch. I mean, that really does describe Dr. Dan Kiley and his staff. 5629209, and even better than that, you will have the most important person in your life, the one person everyone needs, a conservative dentist. And you will know what is on the ceiling of a conservative dentistry. You're going to be staring at that stuff for a half an hour to 45 minutes, so it's very important to have something interesting up there to stare at. The hour sponsor for this hour of the program, 569-1080, 569-1080. The powers that be. Well, they're on display down in Juneau right now. And I think they far outweigh most average people's input. It's not normal for a regular person to impact the legislative process. And that's kind of what we're finding out right now. I don't see it covered in the Anchorage Daily News. Yeah, why would they cover something that is interesting and important and impactful? I guess they probably wouldn't. I want to cover this throughout the program, but I'd like to get your phone calls on it. If you have thoughts on the law of the sea treaty, if you have thoughts on our legislature, only 9 of them voted against saying Alaska has a long-standing support for law of the sea. This did not pass last time. That's how much change has happened in the legislature while we weren't watching. I know that there are national powers at work. There are people who are exhibiting and exerting an enormous amount of pressure and explain to everybody, look, it's okay. You know, the 6.25%, it's not a big deal. I agree. 6.25%, taking that much out of the profits or taking that much out of the resources, maybe it's even out of the gross of resource development in the oceans. That's probably not a killer. That's not going to terminate a project. But the UN levying the tax on all areas of the world because we made a treaty in order to get a 200-mile limit, which we were already enforcing and everybody else has already accepted. We already had bilateral agreements with every nation, maybe excepting Russia. I don't know. I don't know whether or not we had one with Russia. We've already had this for years. What are they doing? And I know there are business interests. Business doesn't care about American sovereignty. Only you do. Only your children does. Business doesn't. There's a whole bunch of people who've been confused for, I think, generations, thinking Republicans are the party of big business because they have aligned ideals. No. Democrats are the party of big business because Democrats are consistent. If you're a boy, if you're a girl, if you're a business, we're going to give you a leg up. You're going to be, we'll take care of you. You're on Wall Street. Hey, here's $4 trillion worth of money that we just printed and gave to you. How do you like us now? Democrats are the party of big business. Republicans are the party of small business and free markets. If big business wants a free market, say like Uber. Yeah. Uber's a huge business. You're our kind of business. So I don't know. I will tell you that there are a lot of who could care less about American sovereignty. They don't care whether or not the UN levies taxes. They don't care whether or not we have transfer programs through the UN in order to give the wealth of our companies and the wealth of our lands, which just happen to be submerged in the ocean, to other countries. They don't care. They're not going to protect you. They are not conservative. They want a free market. Some of them do. Most of them don't. I will tell you that too. They want low taxes. Yeah, I guess we have some common interest there because they don't trust government, and neither do I, and neither do you. Sally Jewell, the queen, is on shore here. Must be nice to be queen. Would you like to be queen, Bonnie? Should we elect you queen?
I would love to be queen.
Oh, see, I think you'd make a good queen. You'd make a much better queen than Sally Jewell.
Yes, I would.
I wonder if they have to kiss her ring. I wonder if she's like, no, right here. It's on my finger. Kiss it. No, I want a real kiss. I don't want a fake kiss.
They're definitely doing some kissing.
Well, they're doing some kissing. They're doing some battling. Apparently, she's not aware that the federal government is a problem up here. It's a little bit hard to understand how our federal masters don't understand why we don't like them. I suppose there's a whole bunch of Democrats up here who either work for the federal government or they suck off the federal government or they work for some kind of union who is a special interest to Democrats. They don't care whether or not Alaska is getting crushed. Do you realize that we're surrounded by wealth untold? Untold trillions of dollars of wealth. And what they've done, these sneaky little rotten people like Sally Jewell, and I apologize for calling her rotten, but frankly, her ideas are rotten. Her ideas are horrific. Her ideas are horrendous, and they're keeping us poor. And Alaska can't afford these guys anymore. I'm just going to let you know that right now. Our living or dying depends on us throwing off the chains and shackles of Sally Jewell and her ilk. We are surrounded by wealth untold. And just offshore, if there's 18 billion barrels of oil, I mean, it's changed because it was $100 a barrel. Now it's $50 a barrel. So now it's only worth $900 billion, not $1.8 trillion. But that's just one set of oil fields. They think there may be 30 billion barrels of oil. There may be 30 billion barrels of oil in Bristol Bay. Anwar probably has around 15 billion barrels of oil. We still have another, 10, 12, 14 billion to go up in Prudhoe. The amount of gas we have, 221 trillion cubic feet. That's worth trillions more. You had to realize we are surrounded by wealth in fantastic quantities. And it's lucky that we are, because it's really, really hard to do business up here because the environmentalists go and sue every chance they get. And then they're covered by the KTUU and Alaska Dispatch News. I remember reading a story here recently where they were talking about what happened when we tried to do offshore, when Shell tried to do offshore drilling. 54,000 jobs on the line, by the way. Probably somewhere 20 to 25,000 Alaska jobs. 20 to 25,000 Alaska jobs, depending on that project. Probably not a big deal, right? I guess as long as you're an environmentalist, it's not a big deal. But for the rest of it, it's a huge deal. But anyway, they said that as soon as Shell came up and got the $2.1 billion worth of leases to develop oil resources, they were immediately sued by native groups. The native groups, by the way, were 7 people in one town. That's what we call a native group. You see how that gives them credibility that they aren't entitled to, that a conservative would never get. Let me go into a couple of things which have hit the news. I would love to hear from you. 569-1080. 569-1080. George Atla has passed away. And I had the pleasure when I was out as a fish processor and a fish buyer on the Yukon River. This would have been back in 1990, 91. Maybe once in 89. I kind of forgetting which years I was out there. I know that it was probably 91, the summer in 91. And I was a fish processor for ANPAC, was the name of the company at the time. I don't think they're around anymore. They were a little tiny fish processor, and I was a foreman for them. But I got to go out, and I got on George Atla's boat. Have you ever heard this story before, Bonnie? This is just classic. So George Atla had this speedboat, basically, that he would run up and down the river, up and down the Yukon River. And if you've never been on the Yukon River, it's the weirdest river in the world because it has sandbars all over the place, and they change every single year because the ice moves these sandbars around. George Atla for those who don't know, is a guy who only has one speed, all on. That's all. There was no, I mean, I think at the time he was probably, I guess he was about 60, but he was just like a little kid. And he ran that boat up and down that river at about 60 miles an hour. It was the craziest thing. You knew that your life was in his hands the entire time that you were on his boat, and he just had all this energy. And I don't know. I mean, I think he broke like 10 propellers one year by running across, and his boat wouldn't stop. His propellers would fly out the back, but he would keep going because he was going 60 miles an hour. Anyway, what a wild guy. And Alaska has lost the Huslia Hustler, and he is somebody that I think everybody will remember from their earlier days here, and his battles to win the greatest race on earth. God rest your soul, George Atla Jr. We return 28 minutes after the hour. Glen Biegel on 95.1 KOAN, streaming live at 1080KOAN.com. Love to hear from you. 569-1080. If you have any remembrances of George Atla, give us a call. 569-1080. 27 minutes before the hour. Glen Biegel show here. Love to hear from you. 569-1080. George Atlas passed away. And I think everybody probably has their own personal memories of him. He was, as they say, unstoppable in life. And I think he'll be remembered for a long period of time. Somebody who people just look up to and was the life of whatever party he happened to be in. Let me tell you about Payless Car Sales. If you are looking for a new car or a used car, a car that will get you around, these guys just have great deals. The two things that are going on with them right now are all of their cars are listed under NADA and oftentimes thousands of dollars. So you already started a pretty good position to be able to bargain with the salespeople over at Payless Car Sales. And these guys they do car sales a different way. It's not a real high pressure situation. You go in there and you're going to find out it's just more of a family organization. JC and Russell and Oscar, they'll just take care of you and find out what it is that you need and see if they can come to an agreement with you. Give them a call, 677-AUTO, 677-AUTO. So under NADA, that's their first thing. And the second one is they'll file your taxes free of charge. So go in there and bring your tax receipts, your W-2s, or whatever else it is. Give them a call, 677-AUTO. They'll tell you how it all works, but they'll file your taxes free. I mean, I don't know how you get a better deal than that. Don't be a Craigslist loser. Give those guys down there a call or go visit them, 919 East 5th Avenue. And meet Treadwell, who is supporting Amy Domboski?
Yes, he is. He has endorsed her.
Well, now that's very nice. Did you expect that, by the way?
No, I absolutely did not expect it.
I have a feeling my guess is on most people who are business people, when they get into politics, they have not firmed up their ideology. That they like the idea of limited government because they know that the bureaucrat, if they get power over you and they have control over your business, that's not the person you want making business decisions. They're like, well, I need to buy a stapler. And he says, well, you need to fill out this form so I can figure out whether or not you should. No, actually, I'm the business owner and I've got my life on the line and I don't need your advice. Thanks very much. But I know you're really smart, but you're just a bureaucrat. So get out of my way. So I get the sense that as, government is a known evil. It's just something you deal with. What are the rules? What are the regulations? How do I make sure that I can make money in this scenario, in that scenario? How do I protect myself? How do I dot every I, cross every T? So I don't think that business people look at government from an ideological perspective. I think they just look at it from, this is what is. This is gravity. I don't sit around and stamp my feet and argue, I wish gravity wasn't 27 feet per second squared. I wish it was some other number. Nobody does that. And so I think when a business person comes into politics, they learn a lot over a short period of time because people for whom their ideology does matter, they come up against and they measure themselves and then they have to think. Now, I think for Lieutenant Governor Treadwell, he was always pro-life, which to me means government is not always right. If they pass a law, it's not always right, that's a huge thing. I don't think people realize how big of a deal that is. There's a lot of people, Democrats usually, who say, you know what? If we pass a law which legalizes abortion, then abortion's fine. There's nothing wrong with abortion. We just, whatever it is. If we pass a law that legalizes gay marriage, gay marriage is just fine. It's no big deal. We pass a law that allows people to have sex in public and they can, do whatever they want in Central Park. Hey, that's fine. That's the way things ought to be. If we pass a law which says crack should be sold on every street corner, well, that's fine too. That's the way a lot of people are. When you step away from that in any way and you set, this is the limitation of the wisdom of government, you're a conservative. You're on my side. And I don't care where it is and what issue it is. If you don't trust a bureaucrat to make your decisions for you and you have a family culture that says this is what is right and this is what is wrong, you're a conservative. And I welcome you. So I think for Lieutenant Governor Meet Treadwell, I don't know that he wanted a system that worked. He wanted a system that made sense. He knew what drove American business. He knows that ingenuity and people taking risks and people figuring things out and doing things a better way and a new way, because he'd started like 20, 30 companies. I mean, the guy is, frankly, is amazing. But he started them as a businessman, not as a politician. I think the person who's probably learned the most about what government should or shouldn't do is Meade Treadwell. I mean, that's the sense I get, because you don't come out and support Amy Demboski when you have old, tried, and true. You just don't, unless you figured out a lot of things.
So you think he kind of came to his conservatism this past election season?
I think so. I think thinking about it, having to say, look, what is consistency? What does it mean to believe in this or that idea, right? And from idea, we get ideology. Where are the boundaries for me? When do I say that's okay for government to do and that's not? And so I think of all the people, and this, by the way, will make Meade Treadwell maybe the most important person in state's history, because he will have, this is what I hate about most conservative politicians, they're total failures at business. And so they fall into politics, right? They failed at everything else. You know what? I'm just going to try politics. And so we'll just see what happens. I like people who have family experiences and business experiences, and they live a life and they do well at life, and then they go into politics. Those are the kind of people who I like, because they know that government can't fix something that's broken. They can try and help incentivize people not to break themselves, and then they can make lines. That's it, and print money.
Well, and there was some thought that he might run for mayor. And so when she had her headquarter opening, he was there, and he said he felt comfortable with her conservatism, her brand. And so that's why he would support her. Why should he get in the race when he felt like she was good?
She waited for a long time, by the way. She was a very adultish about it, if that's a word. If it isn't a word, I'll just coin it right here, right now. And she said, look, if somebody wants to run, she didn't consider Dan Coffey to be a conservative. And she said, I'll wait. You know, show me somebody who's a conservative who's going to stand up for limited government and low taxes. And the person never came. She jumped in. So I thought it was interesting that Meade Treadwell, and now he's being interviewed by KTVA, and he weighs in on the mayoral race. I think it's very important that the next mayor of Anchorage be actively involved in the state's economy and also find ways to see that the economic development help our tax base. So it's not just homeowners who are paying most of the bill. Well, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't it be great if we could get more people at least to understand that they are paying taxes? You know, other than, you know, who pays probably more taxes than anybody? Smokers and drinkers. We got those guys on the ropes.
I read the other day, it's all the vices.
Yes, that's right. We got sin taxes. I can't wait until, and Michelle Obama's already started this, so she's already sort of given away the hint. But they are going to tax you for being fat. And this was something that, who was Gruber, the guy who said that he was a designer of Obamacare, and they depended on Americans to be stupid and uninformed, which means the media is not going to do their job, and Americans who support Democrats are not going to do theirs either.
And he also said he hoped that their biggest hope was that people would not fight back against Obamacare, that they would just go along with it, because that was their biggest fear.
Yeah.
Too bad we didn't, huh?
Well, the problem is that people now, apparently there's chaos in the tax code, and people had no idea that each person who's not insured individually breaks the law. They have a law which says you will transfer the vast amount of your wealth to someone else by buying insurance that you don't need.
And do you know how helpless that is? How helpless of a feeling that is?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's like Common Core for me.
Well, we have to buy car insurance. We have to buy, or we have to pay back student loans. We have to pay credit card debts. But those are all personal choices that we've made. Health insurance, you just have to buy because you live.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's just not fair. I feel very helpless.
Well, we have a lot of work to do. Look, the fact of the matter is, Democrats got together, they organized They got their Facebook groups together. They got the We Love Government groups together. The community organizers went out to churches. I went to the actual church of the Anchorage School District, by the way, and went to a meeting on Sunday. It was on Sunday. It was a Universalist Unitarian Church, which they actually have the gay symbol right next to the Christian symbol, right next to the Muslim symbol, right next to the communist symbol. I mean, it's fascinating to be in there. So the actual church of the Anchorage School District, and they had this like a revival meeting for Great Alaska Schools, which I'll have to go through and let people know. It was the most interesting, odd sort of thing, meeting where they celebrated and they're looking at life from one perspective. This is what happens, by the way, when you give people $2 billion of public money and they do not have to compete against you for it. Because if you gave me $2 billion, you know what I would guess that you would require of me? I want to see every child coming out with a world-class education. And if you can't give that to me, you ain't getting any more money. These guys are not doing that, and they still have $2 billion, but they've got all these employees, and they've got all this activity, and they're making all these claims. I ought to go through some of the claims and a whole bunch of other things. We have a lot to cover. 15 minutes before the hour of the Glen Biegel Show, 95.1 KOAN, 1080KOAN.com. That's where we stream live. And people are asking about podcasts. We had some really powerful shows last week with the governor and with the Speaker of the House. Those will be up on the YouTube channel sometime here in the next day or two. So I will let you know more about that. I would love to hear from you. 569-1080, 569-1080. Glen Biegel Show. Stay tuned. 12 minutes before the hour. It is the Glen Biegel Show, 95.1 KOAN, and also 1080KOAN.com. Streaming live there. And if you are a slope worker, make sure to go out to 1080KOAN to learn how the process is done so that when push comes to shove, you are familiar with it. We are trying to get your iPhone will actually work off of the website. So that's a good way to do that. And we're looking for a way to get Android devices to work there as well. So they're actively pursuing that. Let me give you a quick shot of the news. Walker's bold investment plans fall victim to deficit and a surging stock market. This is a strange story. Basically, they're talking about our $100 billion in savings. It's split between $52 billion in a permanent fund. And I think the $100 billion, by the way, is a little bit of a, it's a little fast and loose. You know, I mean, if you have $80 billion or $85 billion, do you have nearly $100 billion? You know, I mean, to me, the $15 billion is significant. I don't know, Bonnie, you think $15 billion is significant when you're talking about $100 billion? I think $15 billion is always significant. So just for people who are reading this story in the Alaska Dispatch News by Pat Forgy, a little fast and loose. You don't have $15 billion, do you, by the way, Pat? Are you running around with that much change sort of rolling around in your pocket? Anyway, $52 billion in the permanent fund, off limits. They will take the earnings of the permanent fund, I believe. That will, over time, diminish your permanent fund output. $22 billion in the retirement trust funds. And those, when we have really good years in the stock market, that does very well. So, but our governor is saying, well, you know, we might want to invest this a little bit more carefully. So what is that? That's $74 billion. Then we have about $10 to $12 billion in our statutory budget reserves, constitutional budget reserves. So I think we're at more like $85 billion. We're not at $100 billion. And I don't think you should be allowed to say nearly $100 billion. But hey, that's just me. Anyway, they go through this process of saying how we could have enough money sort of to run government. And I do think they ought to be looking at ways that they can run government off of those savings, at least as long as the savings last. But hopefully they do the right thing. You know, it's such a balancing act, by the way. If you can imagine having $85 billion to invest and trying to figure out what the wise thing to do. Are you worried about the stock market crashing? You know, I was worried about the stock market crashing, by the way. Bonnie, I don't know that you've heard this, so this is something new. I was worried about the stock market crashing a long time ago, and I always go to the other side of the boat at the wrong time, right? The boat looks like it's going to tip, and and I always go at the low end and get out, and I invest at the high end. So I've just decided that I'm just going to stay in bonds. This is what I've decided. If the market crashes, what's going to happen is the Fed's going to step in and print another $1 trillion and give it to Wall Street, which will make Wall Street feel very good. And apparently other countries don't care if we print $1 trillion. We're not going to let Greece print $1 trillion, but we can. So my thought is that stock market investments, I guess, because I've been scared of them all throughout history. And I was wrong, and I was wrong, and I was wrong, and I was wrong. I was like, how could it keep going up? Why would it keep going up? Apparently, our profits in our companies are very, very high. They're investing in low-skill workers, low-cost workers from other countries. They're importing low-cost workers to work here through the immigration laws, which, by the way, have been turned aside. A federal court has said that Obama's actions allowing people and giving them green cards when they come here and allowing them to get driver's licenses and have legal status does not meet with the law, and he's put that on hold. So you will be, you should be happy to know that at least may protect some of your paycheck. But I don't know. I guess as I look at this and try and figure out, well, where are we headed? I think the market responds more to the Fed than it does to most other realities. The companies have figured out how to make more and more profit without us getting higher and higher paychecks. And there's no real bottom to that. We went from, I think the average person was paid somewhere around 57,000, 2008, paid about 52,000. So we lost about 10% of our purchasing power. Companies are still doing fine. They say that America had something like a 2.8% growth rate, which is not good, but it's good enough to be better than most of the rest of the world. So it's good enough to keep our, feeding at the trough. Whatever. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it, but I can tell you this. If I was Walker, I probably would go and get some advice from some pretty aggressive investors and try and invest that way. You can go out and read the whole story. It's a very long story, and a lot of these stories are making longer and longer, but it's in the Alaska Dispatch News by Pat Forgy. Some other stories here at the top of the news cycle: the face of homelessness, and I'm going to have a person running for mayor here shortly, and I'll ask him about this. The future of housing first. Michael Johnson admits that he spent years of his life not contributing to society. For so many decades, I was a liability to mankind, he says, from the home that's been his since December 7th, 2011. Right now, I feel like I'm an asset to mankind. This Thursday will be the big 3-0. I got it marked on my calendar, and my God doesn't want me to drink. I don't want to drink. Johnson was part of the first group of residents to move in to Anchorage's Carluck Manor. And Carluck Manor, he was an alcoholic. He had frequent run-ins with law enforcement. I have an extensive police record, over 40 misdemeanors, 1 Class C felony. So what he wanted was, he wanted to get dry, so they gave him housing first, and it worked for him. I have a feeling that he got God, and that was probably the reason why he did it, and it just so happened to coincide with his being given a home. Let me go to Catherine here. Catherine, welcome to the Glen Biegel Show. Nice to talk to you.
Hi, Glenn. Yeah, I was listening to you talk about the stock market, and man, I wrote it out, and then in the late 80s, late 80s, 90s, when it fell, that was the last time. And now I just won't get in because I think it's almost a moral issue.
Oh, that it's so wrong for them to just print money and give it to Wall Street in order to make the stock market go up.
Right.
That's basically where I'm at too.
Yeah, sitting there thinking all the money I'm losing, but darn it, this is so immoral.
It is. It is. That's what it is. It's immoral. And the problem is this, Catherine. The people who are going to find out how immoral it is are running the country now. At some point, they will decide that your Wall Street is not allowed to print $1 trillion and give it to themselves to make themselves rich. At some point, they will decide that, and we will suffer the consequences of that because all the rich people will already be out of the game.
Well, I'm hoping they won't. I'm hoping they won't get out.
Well, hopefully they won't get off scot-free, or at least they'll blame the right people. That's really all we will have at that point. Hey, Catherine, I really appreciate it.
Okay, thanks a lot. Hey, see you Friday night, huh?
I don't know if I'm going to be there. After I'm done with my week, which is about I'm done for the week. I do not try and continue to go to things. So,
oh, bummer.
I know. Well, look, I'm sure you guys have a great time.
I'll be there.
All right. We're not a fundraising show here, by the way. It's just the way things are. It's 2 minutes before the hour. Running for mayor is going to be up with us. Like to hear his take on the homeless issue and housing first, so many other things. Your phone calls welcome, 569-1080. The Glen Biegel Show, 95.1 KOAN. Stay tuned. 5 minutes after the hour, Glen Biegel Show here on KOAN 95.1 KOAN. That's the FM frequency. If you can pick us up on FM, you'll get a much better signal, and it'll come in 2 channels, which is very nice to listen to. 1080KOAN.com. That's where we stream live, and we will be podcasting on I don't know that we're going to do that today. Are we doing it today? We're kind of doing a test of it here today, but that's where our podcast will be. I have in studio with me Dustin Darden, who is running for mayor. Dustin, welcome. Pull that microphone all the way up to you. It extends that way. There you go. You are doing something I think a lot of people think about doing, might even think that they'd like to do, but never get to the point of doing, and that is take on the mayorship.
Correct.
What causes one to get involved?
Well, I just paid my federal income tax, and
all right.
Apparently, if we want this nation to change, somebody's gonna have to stand up to the plate and hit the speedball.
Yeah, the federal income tax. Are you single? Are you married?
Single. Yeah.
So you get hit the worst of anyone. You got no deductions. Nobody's going to limit how much they're going to have to pay 25-30% of your money in taxes.
Right. So that's why I'm running. The reason I'm running is because we live in the country where you have the freedom of speech. I've seen time and time again people, and they just massage everyone's ears, and they don't push what they really believe in. And I have firm beliefs on what I'd like to see happen in the city. And I'm not going to shy back. I'm not going to hold back. You know, today marks the beginning of the 40 Days for Life campaign. That's going to be a vigil outside of the Planned Parenthood on Lake Otis and 40th. So after work, if you get done work or you have the day off till 8 p.m., this thing's going to run for 40 days. And induction there tonight from a very powerful man of God that's going to be speaking. So my whole platform is this. Jesus Christ transformed my life. He showed me something. He said, go tell everybody about this good news. Be who you are and don't shy away from it. I stand for these babies, these innocent kids, these innocent our unborn neighbors that have not been born yet. They have to have someone backing them. People say, hey, Dustin, what about gun violence? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Well, we got a clinic open right now where a woman can go in there and have her baby just killed. And it's completely misconstrued and it's completely deceptive. As in running this election, I'm getting letters saying, if you endorse women's right to life, we'll give you, if you're a woman, we could possibly give you money. Now, this is the kind of stuff people say, well, hey, this is a local issue. This doesn't have anything to, this has everything to do with it. You know, when I get in there, I'm going to stand for life. So going to stand for the working people. In light of this AO 37 thing that tried to get jammed through, I'm against that. And I have disagreements with other candidates that AO 37. Now, that's a disagreement. But when you're talking about innocent babies, that's something that's outright wrong that needs to be addressed. Now, as far as the budget, what I'd like to do is to make it is transparent for all citizens, where people can come in and say, hey, why don't we not build this, for example, some recreation facility for one type of sporting event? Why don't we just not build that? Why don't we just focus on keeping our essential services, our public safety, our roads maintained? Why don't we just hunker down, tighten up our belts, and take care of what needs to be taken care of? All these things I'm going to do. I'm going to put responsible department heads over everything. I'm not going to put any kind of wheeling and dealing, back room, nobody knows what's going on, project no end. Any project that I start, the only reason I'm going to start a new project is because it's going to help the city. One, it's going to generate revenue, and it's going to make Anchorage a better place. I'm not going to do buddy-buddy deals. It's just going to be, hey, come talk to me. You got an idea? I'll work with you. The games need to stop. The backroom deals need to stop. Transparency must happen. And to be the voice of the people of the city of Anchorage. And that's what I intend to do when I get in office.
Well, you said a lot of admirable things, and a lot of things that people, they don't just come out and say. So, talking about your faith, they've kind of banished faith from schools. I mean, what do you think we ought to do about the ability for whoever basically to say, if you're Muslim, we're going to say your prayers, but if you're Christian, we're not going to sing your songs, even during a Christmas pageant. I mean, what do you do about just basic things like that?
There was a time when the 10 Commandments were posted up in schoolrooms, and people knew who God was, and there was no shame in that. We need to get back to what we were founded on. Jesus Christ is the King of glory, and he sits on the throne forever. There's absolutely nothing that is questionable about that. He just is. Now, in schools, do we negate our First Amendment rights to the Constitution of freedom of speech? If you want to talk about whatever, you can talk about it. We can't let this Sharia law, this ISIS mentality undermine everything that this country is founded on. And I'm with it. And somebody needs to stand up to the plate. And I'm telling you, I'm here to stand up for you people. I mean, I got a backbone, and I'm not going to stop until I win this thing. I'm going to do it in love. I'm not going to talk bad about all these people. And I'm praying that somehow the 11 candidates besides myself, which makes 12, that we can band together and say, hey, we're going to stand up regardless of whatever our issues we disagree on, that we can stand together and say, hey, let's stand for these unborn babies. Let's stand on one thing. Why don't we try something different in an election? When you get all of this attention, why don't we say, hey, let's address this. Let's say, you know what? If you're pregnant right now, you can have an adoption. There's somebody who wants a kid. If you've had, and I can't say abortion without saying this, if you've had one, Jesus Christ is gracious and he will forgive you of that. Take away every tear and all the shame, and he will make you brand new in him. So I'm speaking to anyone that's ever gone through that. It wasn't right, but God is so gracious. He will forgive you. From the bottom of my heart, I've experienced this love that transcends all understanding. And if you have this good news, you can say it from wherever you are in life right now. You can declare it. He said, go out and preach the gospel to every creature. That's the last thing that he said for us to do. So I just encourage everyone to say, hey, look, we might have a president, but we have a king who rules over everything. And one day he's going to come back. And right now we have the freedom. We have a safe community. We've got the best police force in that's saying, hey, look, we're going to be open. We're going to have a Facebook feed that's going to tell you what's going on. We're going to have a messaging system tell you if there's some traffic accidents you need to avoid, or if there is a crime, or if there's a fugitive. APD is doing a tremendous job. And the reason that a place prospers hasn't changed now because we have people that are trying to infringe on that right. The reason a nation prospers is because they turn their hearts and their minds to their Creator.
Dustin, I really appreciate you coming in, and I'm going to need to leave it there, unfortunately. But I would like to have you back on, as we get closer to the end of the election. Is that all right? Sorry, we lost you. Okay, go ahead now.
Yeah, one plug. Check me out on Facebook, and it's for a life event on 40th and Lake Otis. It's going to go for 40 days. Pray to end abortion.
40 days for life coming up here. It's on Lake Otis. Hopefully you get a chance to go out there. Thanks for coming on with me. We'll be back. Senator Sullivan will be on the phone with us. Stay tuned. 569-1080 if you have a question for the senator. Appreciate you coming in, Dustin. Good luck. Stay tuned. 18 minutes after the hour sponsor for this hour of the Glen Biegel Show is A&A The Shop. If you're looking for some place to take care of your Subaru so it can take care of you, make sure to take it to A&A The Shop, corner of Old Seward Highway and Tudor, 562-391, and also 3919 or at 696-206. On the phones with us, we have the good senator from the state of Alaska, Senator Sullivan. Welcome.
Hey, Glenn. How are you? Good to hear your voice.
Great. You know, I was with your wife out at the Matt Sue Republican women's event.
She told me you did a great job.
Well, I don't give many speeches. It's funny because I'm every day, but a speech is totally different. So I'm glad it came off, and I really appreciate her for sitting with me and chatting with me for a couple hours.
Yeah, she got to introduce you, didn't she?
Yes, she did.
Yeah. Good
stuff. I saw you at the Military Appreciation Ball on Friday. It was great to see you up there. And, it's almost like you're a kid in a candy store. You got this little look where you got a smile on your face, and you have this military head turn where you're sort of checking out what's going on to the left and to the right, but you snap your head back and forth. Where did you learn that?
Well, I got to tell you, that's one of my favorite events in all of Alaska.
Oh.
That's a great event. I am a kid in the candy store at that event. I've been going to that event for, many, many years. And there's nothing like being up there. And
the best of Alaska.
That event's all about the young men and women who are getting the awards: Soldier of the Year, the Marine of the Year, the Sailor of the Year, and the Airman of the Year. And just seeing the pride that they have. Every year when I go to that, what always strikes me, senators and four-star generals and admirals who give speeches, but without fail, the best speeches come from the young enlisted guys who are asked to speak. I don't know if you...
No, the sergeant,
sergeant was just...
Oh, man. Nailed it.
Killed it. He was fantastic. That guy was great.
He sure was. Well, it was great to see you. Of course, we've got some big news. First, tell me about Sally Jewell. What is she here for other than to make me mad, and what's she trying to accomplish?
Well, look, I just got back from Kotzebue, and it was a pretty important gathering where you had the vast majority of Alaska's leadership. This is the entire congressional delegation, the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, several legislators, the governor, the lieutenant governor, many leaders in the Alaska Native community, and pretty much speaking with one voice, not 100%, but the voice of Alaskans who are tired, Alaskans who are tired of the lip service that the federal government does with regards to meaningful consultation on big decisions. As I reminded her in my remarks, I met with her last week.
A little tense?
Kind of very tense meeting, but at least, we finally got to meet. But
so she hasn't even met with you to why you even got elected? Because a large part of why you got elected, go along to get along.
Yeah, we didn't like a rubber stamp, and we didn't like people that weren't fighting this administration when they were making decisions that were undermining our future. But, a very common, meaningful consultation, it's mentioned in ANILCA dozens of times. And what I said when I met with her last week, what I said in my remarks today was that they're doing it. It's not even close. When you recognize that they reach out to, quote, stakeholders, but not Alaska,
mm-hmm.
I said, we're not just another stakeholder. They're sovereign. We're listed in the U.S. Constitution. Last time I checked, the Center for Biological Diversity and Greenpeace weren't. And that's the kind of station that we're just simply not getting from her. And it's a frustration. And this wasn't just me. This was some of the Native leaders. When leaders of the environmental group, Southside Environmental Group, putting out press releases almost immediately upon the president's announcement on these lockups of Alaska when we haven't even been briefed. That means these groups are getting briefed.
They got before it came out. That's because basically they wrote the law, is from what I understand. They wrote the Pebble. They wrote, they're writing the ANWR stuff.
In my remarks, I emphasized with her, look, delay has been the weapon of choice with this administration.
Mm-hmm.
Projects they don't like.
Delay it, and it'll kill it, because people cannot stand that level of risk.
Exactly. It's OCS. It's 5 Point Thompson was delayed by the feds. It's roads, bridges. And I said, there was this article a number of times about a year ago in the paper, talked about how it takes on average 8 years to permit a bridge. 8 years to permit a bridge. Alcan Highway in 11 months. You can't even permit a bridge in 8 years. Nobody should be for that. Nobody. And I literally, I emphasized that today in my remarks to her and the AFN board. And then finally, the issue that, Glenn, I've been raising a lot, and I raised it here again, was the rule of law, and how this administration, when it finds it convenient, ignores the will of Congress, ignores statutory provisions, and takes matters into their own hands through regulations, particularly when they can't get things passed through the Congress. And I gave a number of examples. And then I said this latest ANWR decision is another example. Congress is the only entity that can make a decision on wilderness, period. And yet they say they're going to manage the 1002 coastal area for wilderness. I said, that's not allowed.
Yeah, they said in the absence of Congress acting, we're just going to treat it like we want to, even though it is up to you guys to say what the designation is, and you have not made that designation.
No, and then I think I know an issue that you've been focused on is immigration. I don't know if you saw it, I did a press conference in D.C. right before I came here with Senator Cruz and Senator Lee, Orrin Hatch, some members of the House. And I referred to this as the Obama two-step, which is you do a head nod to the Constitution and a statute. You're not serious about it. You might even put forward legislation. Evidently, the president's going to put forward legislation to, make the coastal area of
to codify what he's already done illegally.
Right. It'll go nowhere, though.
Yeah.
It'll go nowhere.
That's right.
And then in the meantime, through an executive order, you do it anyways. And
what did the courts
the
tell him?
president has been doing it. He's done it on immigration in a huge way. He's done it with NPRA, where, and again, in my remarks today, I said, yes, under the statute for the National Petroleum Reserve of Alaska, the Department of Interior can manage that, but that doesn't give them the power to take half of that area of Alaska off the table for oil and gas development. And that's exactly what they did. And then,
well, we got your back, by the way, Senator. We expect you to fight, and we know that you are a fighter. And,
I am fighting on this.
Good. Well, look, that's what we needed. That's why we elected somebody different. What our downsizing situation, I really wish you could stay with me, because I got a call for you, and I wanted to get to the downsizing situation. I know there's going to be a meeting at Denina.
On the troop levels?
Yes.
Yes.
What's going on with that? Is there anything that Alaska can do?
Well, I think you saw in the paper today there was a discussion about getting people to come out at this meeting.
I think it's Thursday. Is it next Monday?
It's Monday.
Okay.
February 23rd.
All right.
I will be there. I will be there. And Washington has raised this at the highest levels strategically. As a matter of fact, I'm on the Senate Armed Services Committee now, and we had the Secretary of Defense designee come before our committee for his confirmation hearing. My first question out of the box was quoting General Billy Mitchell, the father of the Air Force, the most strategic place in the world, and the person who owns this place owns the world. And I politely asked the Secretary of Defense designee, do you know where Billy Mitchell was referring to? And he said Alaska. I said, correct. you are partly on your way to getting my vote for confirmation because you recognize not only the strategic location, but the amazing training facilities we have here, unrivaled. Our J Park is as big as Florida.
Senator, can you stay with me, or do you have to go?
Yeah, Glenn, I can stay for a half a segment. I'll just stand by.
All right, stand by. Senator Sullivan on with us, 569-1080. Love to hear from you. If you have questions for him, stay tuned. "27 minutes before the hour, the Glen Biegel Show, 95.1 KOAN, 1080 AM and 1080KOAN.com. That's where we stream live. Country Financial has been protecting cars, homes, farms, and lives for a century. I hope you give them a call. They've got 13 locations across Alaska, 5 here in Anchorage, 5 in the Mat-Su, and locations all the way from Kenai up to Fairbanks. There is a lot of questions that they need to ask you, and a lot of things you probably haven't thought of yourself. Their number, by the way, 1-866-COUNTRY, and country is spelled
COUNTRY.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. She's our Vanna White. I mean, that's really how we do things around here. That's Bonnie Cameron, by the way. You might recognize her voice. She's the producer for the show, and on air with me, I have Senator Dan Sullivan. Senator Sullivan, welcome back.
Thanks, Glenn.
Let me take a call from you from Greg.
Do you want to just real quick though on the making the case on the next Monday? So real
Okay.
quick, I think it's very important. So I've met with General Odierno, the Chief of Staff of the Army. A lot of the top Army officials, what they have a task force coming out here. They're looking at 30 different bases, and they're going to evaluate these in terms of troop levels, possible reductions, both with regard to the strategic location and training, and that's the case I've been making back in Washington. But very importantly, in terms of when they're out here, the community impact in terms of the economic impact, and also the community support for the military. And those are kind of some of the top criteria that they're looking at. We've been coordinating with the other congressional offices and the mayor's office here and up in Fairbanks too. But they said that they'll take all comments until everybody's had their say. So
nobody treats their military better than Alaska does, and we have a love affair.
I couldn't agree more. And we need to make that case. I think it's an easy case to make, but when this gentleman and his team are out in Alaska on Monday and Tuesday, both in Anchorage and Fairbanks, it would be great to have as many people show up at those meetings to really prove it to him. It's going to be important.
All right. Senator Sullivan is on. Greg, go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Glenn, for taking my call. Senator Sullivan, sir, I appreciate you speaking with me. I hope you're well today. My question regards a bill that just got through the State House in Alaska on the way to the State Senate, HB 1, which in its intent, I believe, is to fortify the ability to have local control in Alaska's Arctic Policy Commission structure, which is a very good idea. However,
the Coastal Zone Management Plan, I think, is what it is.
However, in the bill, it's got language that states that we need to reiterate Alaska's support for ratifying the law of the sea. Now, during the campaign, you said that you would resist pressures to ratify the law of the sea, and you were against it. I hope that you will say that you are still against ratifying the law of the sea, because that would work exactly contrary to what I believe the intent of bringing local or state power to Alaska is in House Bill 1 that just went to the Senate.
Well, let's let him answer. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, Greg, thanks. I have not seen House Bill 1, but you're correct. My views on the law of the sea have not changed. I'll tell you this with regard to, in terms of opposition. Couple things, though, in terms of treaties. This is another one of these areas where the president, right now, more broadly, when I talk about this Obama two-step, where he is, even on this Iran nuclear deal that they're looking at, that they've been chasing this deal, they're saying that they're not going to bring that before the U.S. Senate. The Iranians have said they're going to bring that before the U.S. or before the Iranian parliament, but our president's not going to even bring a treaty in front of us dealing as Iran's deal with the United States over its nuclear capability. I've just mentioned that I have not seen or heard any movement on the law of the sea in my 5 weeks down in Washington. What I do hope, though, is that on HB1, it makes the case that, again, I mentioned today, even in front of Secretary Jewell today, is that on Arctic issues, again, we're the other sovereign. The only reason Alaska is an Arctic nation, or America's an Arctic nation, is because of Alaska. And that's one of these things where we're going to be taking over the presidency of the United States next year. And you look at the agenda that this administration putting forward, I don't think it's an agenda that a lot of Alaskans would be supportive of. Doesn't talk a lot about responsement, and it talks a lot about ocean zoning, which is something that I'm also very opposed to.
I wanted to get your take on the replacement for Eric Holder. I know that she has around. Loretta Lynch is her name, as far as I understand it. And what is your take on her?
I have a request in to meet with Loretta Lynch. I have not met with her yet. I'm not on the Judiciary Committee, so I was, watching through both some of the hearing proceedings and talking to some of my fellow senators who are on the Judiciary Committee. But
what are the go-no-go?
I haven't made up my mind whether or not I'm going to vote for her, but I do. I have some doubts because of some of her answers with regard to her views of the president's executive authority and how some of the questions that she was asked go to this issue of the rule of law that I think is critical to our country. We start losing the rule of law. We start having an executive that thinks that they can ignore the will of Congress and act when in areas that are clearly the legislative's prerogative. That's not good for America. So I haven't made an official determination yet. I don't even think she's been voted out of the Judiciary Committee yet, so that is first.
It'll be a little while.
I'm watching it closely.
What do you think about ISIS? What is going on? And as a military man, what should we be looking for as this is important, or this is just sort of what goes on in other places around the world that we're paying attention to we never used to? I mean, I don't really know how to balance this out. It seems heinous, ridiculous, outrageous what they're doing. They're slaughtering innocent people. So obviously everybody's against that. But is there something we should do about it? Is there something we can do about it? And if we had a different president or a different viewpoint or whatever, that we would be doing something about it.
Well, look, the president, you may have seen, has put forward this authorization for the use of military force. And from my perspective, that's important. When the executive and Congress are working together on such critical issues, I think it strengthens America. So I appreciate the fact that they're reaching out to the Congress on that. There's no more important decision than how we deploy our military forces, particularly the young men and women in the military. So I'm going to take that very seriously. There's going to be hearings on this. But what they need to do before they ask for the authorization of military force is to describe the strategy by which they need to defeat ISIS. And I do think ISIS is a significant threat. You see that they just moved into Libya, and you have a lot of Middle East allies that view it similarly as a significant threat. Briefed the Senate Armed Services Committee right the day after their pilot was burned alive. So this administration needs to lay out a strategy to defeat ISIS, and that needs to be all instruments of American power, not just the military, but economic, finance, energy, diplomatic, and they haven't done this yet. And
the United States has a lot at its disposal, and we are not using them.
And one of the biggest tools, and again, I've emphasized this in the hearings every time we have Senate Armed Services Committee hearings, is yes, we have the greatest military in the world, the women in the military. We also have other tools, and one of those that we didn't have 10 years ago is energy. We are now on the verge, if we haven't already been, once again, the world's energy superpower in terms of oil production, in terms of gas production, in terms of renewable production. And one thing that drives me crazy about this administration, occasionally they'll mention energy, but then they take actions like they have in Alaska, where they're taking huge swaths of Alaska and America's energy potential off the table. And I've asked military and other officials, don't you think that undermines America's national security? This is a huge opportunity for us. And they won't pursue it in a way that I think benefits our state or our country, and that's a problem.
Well, our energy department has been the biggest impediment to new energy sources. None of the above. I think that's what people have called them. I noticed that there weren't very many Marines in the military appreciation ball.
Well,
you were one of them, and there was only about I thought about 10 other ones, maybe.
We're the few and the proud, right?
What was it that the sergeant said?
The Marine Corps does not have a big presence in Alaska.
The
it's
sergeant.
A proud presence. As a matter of fact, I was just at the VA today. After I got off the plane from Kotzebue, I went to tour the Veterans Hospital here and was greeted by two Marine Korean War veterans and a Marine Vietnam veteran, and these guys could probably do damage to ISIS right now in their own.
If you just give them a shot,
very proud Marines.
Right yeah. Now. The sergeant who gave the speech, and he was an absolute rock star. But he said that I'd never met any Marines before, but they call themselves a few and they're proud, and they may just be. I don't know. He seemed pretty impressed with them.
Yeah, well, everybody that night was impressive, and that's again why I love going to that. That's such a great event, and it makes the point you were making. There's not a better community in terms of Alaska, regardless of whether it's Fairbanks or Anchorage or in the Valley or on the Kenai, anywhere in this state, where we don't have just tremendous support for the military, and that event really highlights it, which is one of the reasons I love going to it so much.
Well, the smile on your face was worth the price of admission. It was great to see you there.
Well, hey, Glenn, great to be on the show. I look forward to catching up again soon, and keep up the great work.
Thanks. You too. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Senator Dan Sullivan, 15 minutes before the hour of the Glen Biegel Show, 95.1 KOAN, 1080KOAN.com. We stream live. Love to hear from you. 569-1080. Woo! 11 minutes before the hour, 569-1080. Glen Biegel on the air here. Bonnie Camera on the other side of the glass, taking care of all the producer activities. If you are looking for someone to replace your roof or put a new roof either on your business, your commercial building, or your house, whatever it is, it's great to be able to work with the best in the business. We got a bunch of decent roofers around here, even good roofers. But we also have the best roofing company in the state of Alaska. And they were Better Business Bureau Business of the Year, which kind of proves it. That's across all businesses. You know, Burger King's, glass replacement places, every place that you can think of. For a roofing company to win this award is simply amazing. If you give these guys a call, 345-5555, you will find Frank, James, and Becky ready to take care of you. They got 61 employees, 25 trucks, and there is no job that is too big or too small. They are a roofing ballet. I know they don't like me to call it that, but if you ever watch the way they do it and how, I don't know, kind of choreographed everything is, you'll find out why I call it that. 345-5555. When you think roofing, think Earhart. EARHART. 569-1080 is the number. I'd love to get your thoughts on the good senator. Just call us, and he in. And that might surprise you. It doesn't surprise me. I think for military people, their values get ingrained pretty deeply. And it's nice to have him represent the state of Alaska. Let me go to the phones here. Talk to Bill. Bill, welcome to the Glen Biegel Show.
You just stole my thunder.
Oh, I'm so sorry. What did I do?
It's about time we've got a senator that's paying attention to the state of Alaska.
Yeah.
And, you know, I like to fell out of my chair when I heard it. I was just talking to Ms. Campbell there, and it's difficult to tune you
or Ms. Cameron,
in.
either way.
Cameron, you know what I'm saying.
I do. No, you guys are sharp as a tack.
Yeah, right. But anyway, I don't want to get off course. It's about time we've got a senator that's supporting Alaska.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I like to fell right out of my chair when I heard it. It was just outstanding. He's done more in the last month than some senators have done in 2 times. For sure, we got rid of the right one.
Yeah.
And
there's just no question about it. When he goes down to Washington, D.C., they're not changing him. They're not rewriting his backbone. They're not removing his. He is who he is. He represents us, and he is fighting.
Thank you. And that's the way he's going to do that. And thank you for letting me talk. And it was a pleasure to hear the senator talk.
Yeah, I think so.
See you later.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
My wife's vote wasn't wasted.
That's right. You know, sometimes, and it's very, very difficult. Thanks so much, Bill. Appreciate it. 8 minutes before the hour here. 569-1080. It is a very difficult place. I know that when people go down to Washington, D.C., you know, I mean, think about if somebody gave you, I don't know, $3 million to spend. They said, I trust you, and I want you to help spend this $3 million, and it's very important that we do the right things with it. In all likelihood, for most of us, that's probably going to change us. We're going to say, you know, I got $3 million to spend. You come tell me your story, and I might spend it on you. You come tell me why you're the best person to get this cash, and I might decide that I'm going to bless you with it, or I might give it to my friends. What if it was $3 billion? 1,000 times more than $3 million. Would that change you? What if it's $3 trillion? 1,000 times more than $3 billion. It's impossible for the human mind to conceive of that amount of money. Impossible. It's not possible. So, you know, the average person can't know the pressures that are being applied, the temptations that are being offered. What we can see is a man who is working hard and who remains who he was. That, to me, is impressive. More impressive than just about anything else in the world that we will ever experience. So I'm so glad that he calls and spends time with us. It's just great to be a part of it. And I remain convinced that we have elected the most conservative person in the history of our state to the Senate. And I was proud to support him. I'm glad if I helped walk you through the difficult process of figuring out, is it perfect or is it good enough? If I convinced you that it was good enough to vote for him, and I think somebody you can be proud of. 569-1080, 6 minutes before the hour. You know what today is? A lot of people don't know this is Mardi Gras. So it's also called Fat Tuesday. And why is it called Fat Tuesday? Tomorrow starts the 40-day process commemorating Jesus's 40 days in the wilderness, where he fasted and prayed and suffered. Then he was tempted by the devil at the end. You'll remember that. But it doesn't include Sundays. So that's why it goes on for longer than 40 days total from Ash Wednesday when it starts. But today is Fat Tuesday. They call it Fat Tuesday because tomorrow, and for some people, actually starting here in 5 minutes, you might start fasting if you're going to do a dinner-to-dinner fast, which is what I often do. By the way, Bonnie, Friday, worst day, hardest day of the year for me. So if I'm crabby on Friday, it will because I've fasted starting tonight till tomorrow, and then starting on Thursday night until Friday night.
Well, thank you for the warning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is the hardest 3-day period of the year for me. So tomorrow is Ash Wednesday. They place ashes to ashes, dust to dust from the dust we came, and we will return, and it's sort of to bring humility. And that will be going on tomorrow. I hope, for people who think about the year and the year as sort of a cycle that we live through, and, they come and they go. Right? To me, Bonnie, years come and they go pretty fast. And if you don't have something which kind of marks the passage of the year, that was your daughter, by the way. Is she going to be okay?
She's fine. Sorry about that.
For people who don't mark the passage of the year, and their lives just sort of go on, but they don't really work on anything, a New Year's resolution and all of that kind of stuff, where you actually change something in your life, and then you don't go back to whatever your bad habits were. That's kind of what Lent is for a lot of people who follow it. And even if you're not Catholic, I would suggest that you think of something to give up, something that's hard. I give up yelling, by the way. I don't find that hard anymore because I very, very rarely yell. But,
I might try that too.
Yeah.
Either that or Facebook, but I don't think I could give up Facebook. I'm just too involved.
You shouldn't give up Facebook because it's part of your duties for the show.
Oh, there's my good excuse.
All
then.
right. Now, yelling at other drivers, though, this is a big, big problem for me. So I'm going to try and be patient. I, of course, fast during fasting days. I give up snacking. That is very difficult for me.
This sounds like a do-over for New Year's resolutions. Like if you didn't do it the first time, this is your second chance.
With kind of a religious twist that you just, and giving up meat on Fridays, which is, that sounds not that hard, but it is really hard. And so these are just little things you're trying to get yourself ready for Easter, which is coming, I guess, probably 48 days away, something like that. Anyway, it's been a great pleasure to be with you. Thanks for spending some time here on the Glen Biegel Show. I hope you give me a call. You'd love it if you participated fully in the show. It's much more interesting to hear your comments than hear me. So that's just the way things are. But if you do think about it, give us a call, 569-1080. Have a great Tuesday. Have a Fat Tuesday. And tomorrow, Ash Wednesday, will begin the season of Lent. Love to have your participation. Care. God bless, folks.